that you represent, because I can honestly say this, even from my from my perspective, we couldn't have survived without the SBA and the programs that you guys put together.
We've helped a lot of people, Tim, and it's what drives myself and my staff. It's all about the small businesses and helping them to survive and to recover. But this morning's show and sharing information about the new Restaurant Relief Fund program, which will launch pretty soon. The timing is really perfect because this is a brand new program. It's going to help a lot of food service businesses. And so very happy to be on with you this morning. And, so this is actually the first time that I'm publicly talking about the Restaurant Relief Fund. So when we picked this date, we were spot on because this is going to roll out pretty quickly.
Excellent, excellent. Just before we get started, I'm going to give you the floor in a second. I do want to acknowledge our sponsors. As you all know, South Shore Bank has been a sponsor from day one at our in-person breakfasts that we used to have, and we will be having again this year, and our morning brew. And we have a new sponsor, which I'm honored and happy to announce, Dunkin'. I have it right here. They are a new sponsor of the morning brew. And they reached out to us a couple weeks ago and said that we'd like to sponsor this, and all of the area Dunkin' franchises have contributed to this sponsorship. So, and as so many of you know, Dunkin', when it was Dunkin' Donuts, started here in Quincy back in 1950, the very first Dunkin'. So we're really proud to have both of our sponsors because they allow us to bring this kind of content to you. And as Bob said, this is the first time this has been publicly announced, this program, this restaurant program. So we're going to dig right in, and we're honored again to be the organization that starts to bring this to you. So Bob, tell us about I guess it's called the Restaurant Revitalization Program. Is that correct?
The Restaurant Recovery Fund. So, so we call it the RRF. So you'll hear me reference that. But as far as the appropriations that SBA received, so this is another brand new grant program that was appropriated, and SBA has been asked to stand up and to help deliver the funds to small businesses. We received $28.6 billion in appropriations nationwide. So there's no state allocation. This is a national program. But if you look at the percentage of the Massachusetts population to the nation, this is going to translate to over $625 million worth of capital going into restaurants and food service businesses. So it's an important program. But one of the big things to know about this is unlike the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program, entities are not going to have to register in the System for Award Management. They don't have to have a DUNS number. So it's going to be much easier and simpler for them. So that is certainly a top line message. No SAM registration needed, no DUNS number needed. As far as entities that are going to be eligible for this, we're talking bars, restaurants, food trucks, carts, taverns, bakeries, as long as, there's 33% in-store, sales, so it's not just a wholesale operation, in-store sales, but we're also talking breweries, wineries, brew pubs, and again, so there's a lot of different entities, but, food carts, if I didn't mention that. So you think of your smaller of the small, but also a lot of different established, restaurants. But as far as what we're going to do is there's going to be a test of the platform. And so we're in the process of working on getting 1,000 entities across the country. All 50 states will be represented as part of that 1,000 entity test. It will be done over a 7-day period where they'll go through, make the application, go through the process. There's not going to be any funding for them during this 7-day test. But after the test and the success of that, then it's going to open up for entities to apply through an online portal for the grant. We do think that probably 80 to 90% of the grant applications are going to go through, based upon a streamlined machine intelligence process. But there will be just a percentage of applications that are going to have a set of eyes to review the applications. But this is going to be rolled out very quickly and processed very quickly, and I think it has the opportunity to be one of our best programs. I'm excited about it. But as far as entities that get the grant dollars, they have until 3/11/23 to use the money. The entity can't be permanently closed. So this is not for entities that shut the door, they're not opening. But if a business is temporarily closed and anticipating reopening, this is a program that could be used for them. The covered period is from February 15th, 2020, again, until 3/11/23. Entities can use the funds for accrued unpaid expenses. But one of the big things is that they can use this money for debt payments. So you think of SBA loans, they can pay principal and interest with these grant dollars on SBA loans, on business debt, on mortgage debt. This is going to be a big help to these entities. But the minimum grant that we're going to do, it's $1,000. It's going to be $5 million per location, $10 million max per applicant and all affiliates. We're not using a credit elsewhere test, but the entity is going to certify about the need for the grant. But as far as entities that would be ineligible, if an entity has more than 20 locations, they're not going to be eligible. So again, the Small Business Administration trying to help the smallest and the smallest of the small. Nonprofits are not eligible for this. State and local government owned entities are not eligible for this, but there's, Tim, I know in your market, you have a lot of food service businesses and a lot of restaurants. They're going to benefit tremendously through this program. But let me go, Tim, if you wanted to jump in.
So I can stress this. You mentioned the word grant. This is not a loan. This is a grant, right? It means it doesn't have to be repaid, correct?
Absolutely. So this is not like PPP where it's a loan and you apply for forgiveness. This is a grant. So you get the money, and SBA is going to be asking how you use the money. You need to keep records as far as how you use the money, but this is a grant, and again, not like the PPP. But
this is music to our ears, Bob. Trust me.
Like I said, I'm saying this sincerely and honestly, I do think that this has the potential to be one of our easiest and best programs to help this industry segment. But as far as if you think of how the grant is going to be calculated, for businesses that were established prior to January 1st of 2019, what they're going to do is they're going to have their 2019 gross income. They'll subtract their 2020 gross income, and they'll subtract any PPP loan amounts that they received. That would be the grant amount. So it's a pretty simple math equation, but there's also with the program, and you'll see when the application comes out and the grant program guide, there's ways that new entities are going to be able to apply for this money. So we're even talking about entities that have not opened yet, but they've incurred eligible expenses. They're going to be eligible for to apply for these grants. And we know that, through PPP, through the economic injury loan, a lot of these, early stage businesses, were not able to apply for those programs because, under PPP, they had to be in operation on as of February 15th of 2020. But if a business was just, opened in partly through 2019, they're going to be eligible for this. And there's a way, it's basically, we're looking at the number of months that they were open in 2019, dividing it by 12, multiplying it by 12 to come up with the full year, then subtracting the 2020 gross income, and again, subtracting any PPP dollars. But I think that the message is that this grant program, it's potentially eligible and available for all entities, even early stage restaurants and food businesses, and even businesses that have not opened yet, as long as they've have incurred eligible expenses. So this is, again, going to help those businesses that were not able to get dollars through PPP or the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program.
So when you say, I have a question here from Bob,
Yeah.
from John, I'm sorry. When you say you subtract the PPP, if you've got two PPP loans, you subtract them both, correct?
You are, yeah. So whether it's a first draw or a second draw, whether you got the PPP in 2020 or 2021, the PPP loan amount will be subtracted, as part of that equation in order to determine the math. So yeah, say you had. You think of most restaurants, they were shut for most of 2020, and they were operational for a couple months. So say they had $1 million in revenue in 2019, a couple $100,000 in 2020, and they so that's 800,000. They got a 300,000 PPP. They're going to be eligible for a $500,000 grant through the RRF. So again, a simple math equation, so simple is music to my ears, and so again, I think that this is going to be good. So, Tim, an important thing with this is that there is a priority period of 21 days for women-owned businesses, for veteran-owned businesses, and for socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. So again, trying to help these underserved markets with that 21-day priority. We're going to, as soon as the grant portal opens up, everyone is going to be able to apply. But as far as funding, it's going to be to those businesses that are fall into the priority category: women, veterans, socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. But everyone will be able to get their applications in. I think businesses should be getting ready to apply. They are going to have a 2019 tax return. That is, unless it is a business that hasn't been open yet. There are ways that we're going to be able to get the documentation. But for most entities, we're going to need to have evidence that they filed their 2019 tax return. So this is going to be important. That's part of the verification that we're going to be doing. It's called a 4506T. If anyone knows about this, where we get a transcript from the IRS as far as the tax return that was filed by the small business. So that it's part of the validation and the verification to prevent fraud and abuse. So, but this is going to be a requirement that we are going to check on that they have filed their 2019 tax return.
So my question would be, and then you compare it to the 2020 numbers.
Correct.
What's the verification process for that?
Yeah, we're going to, if they haven't filed, we're going to be looking at bank statements, financial statements, other supporting documentation in order to, substantiate, what their 2020 was. So they will not have to file their 2020 tax return, but we need to know that they filed their 2019 tax return, and there will be a verification of that through what's called the 4506 verification form and process. So, Tim, there's a couple set-asides. Again, the intent is to try to help, the smaller of the small businesses. So, as far as the set-asides out of the total appropriations, $5 billion for entities that have gross income under $500,000. There's a $4 billion set aside for entities that have a gross income of $501, $500,001 up to 1.5 million, but a 500 million set aside for 2019 gross income of less than $50,000. So I think a lot of these real small, whether it's a food cart, a vendor, they're going to be eligible for this. And it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but Tim, as well as I that, these entities, getting a couple $1,000s, of grant dollars, $5,000, this can make a tremendous difference to these small entities. And
absolutely, I can speak on behalf of what the PPP program did for us, the chamber. We were eligible the second time around, not the first time, and got it in the middle of the winter. It allowed us to pay our employees. It allowed us to pay our rent, and without stress. It got us through what we knew was going to be a difficult time. The first quarter of 2021 was going to be a difficult time for us. And it just relieves the stress. And that is the biggest driver of people's concern, is the stress level. I owe this. And
Right.
what they're trying to do is get ahead. Now, we've had restaurants that have gone out and bought new equipment for outdoor dining.
Right.
So they're spending more, making less, and this can help fill that gap. And the beauty of it is they don't have to go into debt for it.
It's a perfect segue, because I wanted to talk about what they could use these grant dollars for. They can use it for payroll expenses. They can use it for rent, for a business mortgage, again, principal and interest. They can use it for business debt, again, principal and interest. They can use it for accrued unpaid expenses, again, going back to that covered period start in 2020, but other things that they can use this money for is utility payments, for inventory, raw materials, maintenance expenses, outdoor seating, outdoor dining, which you just mentioned, supplies, operational expenses. It really is a very generous and broad eligible use of proceeds with this program. And that's why I'm saying I think that this is going to be one of the best and the easiest programs that we have, Tim.
Question for Maureen: is this program, does it apply to restaurant suppliers?
This is for, we're talking about in establishment dining. So it's not for, a supplier. And so, like, when we talk about, the breweries and the wineries and the bakeries, they have to have the 33% in-store, in-establishment sales. So this is not a program for B2B. This is for, businesses that are, selling to consumers,
Good.
So hopefully I answered that. So again, I think this is going to be a strong program, and this translates into a lot of dollars, for the Massachusetts economy and for the nation's economy as a whole. And
you mentioned earlier, I think I got the number right, 625 million is sort of the Massachusetts allotment based on
there's no state allotment, but
okay.
what I do is, I look at the Massachusetts percentage of the nation's population. And, when I look at what we've done for PPP loans in Massachusetts, it's been relatively consistent, depending on, what round of PPP funding that you've done. So, under the most recent appropriations of PPP, set from the very beginning that the goal for me in Massachusetts was $7 billion with the PPP funding that we're doing right now. And right now we're at just about $6.2 billion. So we're right on target, as far as where we have trended in the past. And we've trended, higher than the percentage of the Massachusetts population compared to a nation as a whole when we look at numbers of units in dollars. So it's always my goal and my team's goal to try to get as many of these federal dollars into the Commonwealth as possible. But there is no state allotment. But I look at what my goal is to deliver, and we're going to be doing a lot of outreach on this, Tim, and
Great.
to make sure that everyone knows. We'll be doing outreach in different languages, trying to reach different communities, Asian communities, Latino communities. We are, Black and brown owned small businesses. We know that, a lot of underserved, a lot of minority small businesses, operate restaurants and
Absolutely.
are part of this industry segment. And so there's going to be a lot of work on the part of my team and our resource partners to make sure that we're reaching underserved small businesses and the smallest of the small. I want to make sure that the food cart vendor knows that they can apply for this grant and that it's going to be easy for them and that it is a grant. This is not a loan. I want these entities to get dollars.
Good. We love that. We love that. I'm going to segue away. You kind of started leading into what you guys have been doing over this past year, what you've done. Why don't you, for those people who haven't been watching, haven't been paying attention, tell us what the SBA, in terms of numbers of businesses they've helped, numbers of dollars. I mean, you've had, it hasn't stopped. The programs keep coming. It started over a year ago. Talk to our members about what you guys have accomplished, what you guys have done, and bring them up to speed in terms of what the SBA, how the SBA has met this challenge that we've had the last year.
Sure. So the first thing I'll talk about is the PPP program. And so the deadline for PPP was extended under the Ppp Extension Act by President Biden. And so it takes the deadline out to the end of May, but it's all subject to appropriations. And what I want small businesses to know is if you have not applied for a PPP first draw loan or a second draw loan, get your application in because we're probably not going to have appropriations through the end of May. So don't delay, get your application in if you have not yet applied for a PPP first or second draw loan. As you heard me mention, we've done really well here in Massachusetts. We're at just about $6.2 billion of PPP approvals. That's as of April 11th. We've done 78,000 approved loans. This is just under 2021 PPP loans. So our lenders have been amazing with helping to deliver these programs. So PPP, so the restaurant relief program, it's going to be direct through the government. The money is going to come from the government. It's not going to be through a bank. But PPP, it's through an SBA lender with an SBA guarantee. But our lenders have been tremendous in responding and helping to deliver this program because we couldn't do it without them. So as far as PPP, there were some recent changes making more entities eligible for a PPP. And so in basic terms, for Schedule C filers, what we changed is they are now allowed to use their gross income in order to calculate the maximum loan amount versus the net income. And a lot of smaller entities, they had a loss on their net income and they weren't eligible because they had the loss. And with the change, SBA is allowing them to use their top line number, the gross income, to calculate the maximum loan amount. So it made more entities eligible and it made more entities eligible for larger PPP loans. So again, important to know, applications are still being accepted by all lenders in Massachusetts, but the dollars are going out the door. The appropriations are shrinking. So don't delay, get your application in. But the Schedule C filers, that is the biggest change. And that helps a lot of the smaller of the small, a lot of underserved small businesses. And we are seeing, positive trends in helping minority entrepreneurs and underserved small businesses with these changes that were announced by the Biden-Harris administration. So again, I think this is good news for small business.
Excellent. Excellent.
So
now is, my members, they look, when it comes to loans, it's a different ballgame than grants or forgivable loans. But it's, you guys have a tremendous amount of loan programs. And if you need to borrow money, there's never been a better time to do it, right? The interest rates and the number of programs you guys have, right?
Absolutely, Tim. So on PPP, everyone should know it is a forgivable loan as long as you use the money in accordance with the program. And I can tell everyone out there, so under the first 2 rounds of PPP that were done prior to August 8th, we're talking about 5.2 million approvals nationwide. We've received 2.4 million forgiveness applications. Almost all of them have been 100% forgiven. So it is, when you think of 2.4 million of these loans going through the forgiveness process, almost all of them being forgiven, that is the goal of the program. That's our hope, that all of these loans will be 100% forgiven. So I just wanted to make sure that people know, if your covered period is up, get your forgiveness application in, and we are turning these things around. On the smaller dollar loans, the forgiveness decisions are being done very, very quickly. And SBA has implemented, again, using machine learning, through the different portals, where they're getting the forgiveness decisions very quick. But Tim, you talked about our regular loan program. So, SBA, we increased the guarantee on most of our loans up to a full 90%. That reduces the risk on the part of banks and gives them more incentive and comfort to lend to small businesses. We've eliminated the fees that are charged to small businesses and to lenders. So again, it's providing the incentive on both sides. And our regular loan programs are going to be more and more important as we continue to get into recovery. And so our 504 program, which is used for fixed asset purchases, to buy a piece of real estate, to buy a big piece of equipment, that program's on fire, because we're talking about 25-year fixed rate money fully amortizing. And when you're talking about no fees, it's a wonderful program. There's the ability to do a debt refinance with the 504 program. We've relaxed the rules on that. So again, talk to your lenders, talk to SBA resource partners, talk to anyone at the SBA office about how our regular loan programs can help. But one of the other big benefits, which is out there right now, is that SBA, for new loans that are approved, SBA will be making 3 months worth of payments of principal and interest. It's capped at $9,000 per loan. But it's not a deferment. We're not pushing out the interest and when they have to pay. SBA actually makes 3 months worth of principal and interest payments on these new loans that are approved after February of this year. So again, another incentive out there if someone is looking for some debt and there's going to be the need for an SBA guarantee. But we're doing regular loans through our guarantee program, through our 504 program, through our micro loan program. But we're continuing to do economic injury loans, Tim. That's another direct program through the SBA where folks apply at sba.gov/disaster. One of the recent changes on that program is, and this was implemented just on April 6th. So it's not that long ago, where SBA previously was doing 6 months worth of working capital up to maximum loan amounts of 150,000. We're now offering 24 months of working capital with maximum loan amounts of 500,000. So, a big change, getting more dollars to small businesses. And again, this is a direct loan program through the SBA, 30-year terms, low interest rates, eligible for profits and nonprofits. If there are businesses that received an economic injury loan previously and they're interested in an increase, it is a simple process. Just an email over to the SBA requesting an increase. I know that we're looking at these things, trying to turn them around without requesting any additional documentation from the small business, and making these decisions based upon the documentation that we reviewed and have on hand through the original economic injury disaster loan process. But yeah, we've been busy, Tim, since last March.
It's amazing, and not only busy but very approachable and accessible, because the word, people don't know about this, or they don't know the simplicity around it. A lot of small business, as you know, these business entrepreneurs wear many hats, and they often don't have time to track down information and to fill out paperwork and to do all the stuff. They don't have maybe an accountant to do that. They don't have the money. So to make it simple for them to do it is a game changer. It's a game changer. A lot, and to be inviting and to have the options. You can go to a bank, you can go to us. Interest rates are low. And the simplicity is the key, in my mind. Simplicity is the key. And that was not always what people thought of when they thought of SBA. This is simple. And you guys have done a great job of simplifying it. At the same time, as a taxpayer, we got to keep track of this. We don't want to invite corruption or, fraud. So it's two heads, and people have to understand that. You're not giving money away in many cases. And when you are giving it away, like in a grant program, you want it to go to those people who really need it, who legitimately need it. And I think that's a key part of it.
Absolutely. We've learned a lot, since last March, when we first started doing economic injury loans, and so processes have changed and they've gotten better. But Tim, I'll just mention another program just quickly. So it's called the Targeted Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance. And so we call the economic injury loan an EIDL loan, EIDL. So we received appropriations for what's called the Targeted EIDL Advance. So previously, SBA, we were doing advances. They were calculated at 1,000 per employee up to 10,000 max. With the targeted advance, it was and is intended to balance out for entities so that they could get the full 10,000, but they have to be located in a low-income community. They have to have suffered a 30% economic loss. But if SBA has been emailing invitations out to entities that are potentially eligible, asking them to apply for the targeted EIDL advance. So if there are entities out there, if you receive one of those emails, the SBA emails would be from an SBA.gov email. So there are fraudsters and scammers out there. Make sure that you're responding to an SBA.gov email. But again, this is a grant through the SBA. You'd get the money from Treasury. So for an entity that previously received $1,000, they were a sole proprietorship, just themselves. If they've suffered a 30% economic loss, if they're in a low-income community, they apply, they demonstrate the economic loss. There's a mapping tool that identifies them, and small businesses can use that mapping tool to see whether they're in what is designated as a low-income community and eligible for this. They'd get an additional grant of $9,000.
Right.
But we're also inviting folks in who had applied for the grant, but we ran out of money, and that happened last July. Again, if they had that 30% economic loss and they're in a low income community, they're going to be eligible for a full $10,000 grant. Under the most recent legislation, we're also doing what is called a supplemental targeted EIDL advance. And it's for smaller entities that have suffered a greater economic loss. They're going to be eligible for an additional $5,000 on top of the $10,000. So, these are things that I think are really important to help the smallest of the small, the hardest hit, underserved small businesses. This is what we're here for, to try to help all small businesses. But when you think of these businesses that are really challenged in underserved communities, these are programs that have been announced and in process in various stages of implementation.
It's staggering, because we've seen it in person, in the money on the EIDL advance, EIDL advance goes right into your account. Just goes, all of a sudden you see, treasury number, and the amount goes in if you've qualified. So you don't even have to, you just have to keep track of your bank statements to find out when the money's in there. So it's
right.
And it may not make or break the business, but it certainly puts a smile on your face. It gives you a little bit of sense of security to get through the week, because many of these businesses are going week to week, some day to day. So these are all great programs, Bob. I don't want to keep you forever, because we could. But this announcement is great. I have one more question, and then I'm going to have you wrap up on the RRF, because we're hopeful, based on what you're saying, that is going to be synonymous with PPP in terms of how people look at the SBA and this program. So the RRF program, when is it? How long before the test is done? When do you think you'll be accepting applications for this program? Estimate.
Yeah, so I don't have a firm date for you, Tim. I'm just guessing. I'm thinking within a couple weeks. So as far as when I know the website has been built, but it's in the process of being cleared. So the application is out there on the Office of Management and Budget's website. SBA has not released it yet publicly, but if anyone wants to search the application, they could search Restaurant Relief Fund application, and it's on the Office of Management and Budget's website. We call it OMB, so they could see what that application looks like. Again, I think it's very simple application. It's going to be easy for small businesses to complete. And, we know that we need to get these dollars out quickly to these entities so that we can help them to continue with their recovery and reopening, and to help this economy to get back with the full reopening and back on solid footing, Tim. So it's going to happen quick. And that's why I think it's wonderful that we were able to chat this morning and to talk about this, so that folks know how the grant is going to be calculated, and so that they can be prepared and start thinking about this.
Yeah, well, that you can start preparing now, basically getting your 2019 taxes in front of you, so you can look at it, looking at your 2020 numbers. You've laid that out. That's going to be the part of it. You can start doing that right now in preparation,
Right.
which I would encourage people to do. I'm excited about this. We want to be helpful in getting the word out, especially to our members and to our Quincy restaurants. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. I don't think there's been an industry that has been more negatively impacted by COVID. Not on purpose. It's just the nature of the business when you're dealing with people and crowds and food, that a virus like COVID is going to impact it, and they have suffered a great deal. Many have closed, but those people who have hung in there and able to hang in there, this is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's coming real quick. So we're thrilled. How do people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you or your team, Bob?
So the Massachusetts SBA website, sba.gov/MA, you'll see our office directory. I know Norman Eng, who's my public affairs specialist. He does a lot of work on the South Shore and in the Quincy area, working with small businesses and AAPI community. But, everyone, we're still working remote, Tim, and we're expected to be working, 100% telework for the foreseeable future. But, everyone is accessible. All the office phones have been forwarded to cell phones. Everyone has an SBA cell phone device. Don't be shy about reaching out to me personally via email or through my phone. You can find all this on the SBA website. But if there are folks out there who have not signed up for our email updates, they should go onto sba.gov/updates, register for our e-newsletter so that you get the most current, accurate information from us. And we push out information, rather quickly as soon as we learn it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm excited about the RRF. I'm really excited about the Restaurant Recovery Fund. We are going to push our members to take full advantage of it. And we'll be, like I said, we want to be an outlet, for you as well. So you're not inundated. We can answer the questions. We can get people signed up and up on the platform. So this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on. The timing, as you said, was perfect. And we want to continue to do everything we can for our small businesses. So thank you for what you've done. And more importantly, thank you for what you're about to do. This is a big one.
You got it. Well, thank you, Tim, and thank you to the Chamber for your support of the SBA and our programs. And happy Friday, and be well and safe, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. This will be up on our website. We're going to push this out. We're going to send this directly to restaurants and get this message out and to food establishments. I want to thank our sponsors for hosting this event, for sponsoring this event. South Shore Bank, which has done a magnificent job in the PPP area, and Dunkin' Donuts. I'm sorry, Dunkin'. Used to be Dunkin' Donuts. Now it's Dunkin'. My favorite coffee shop, been in Quincy since 1950. And it is now all over the world. They have now become a full sponsor of the Morning Brew, and we thank them for that and for keeping America running. So thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Again, we'll have this up on Facebook as well as on our website so you can watch it, and I encourage you to do that. Thank you all. As Bob said, have a happy long weekend here in Massachusetts. Patriots Day is Monday, so no marathon, but we're still celebrating the founding of this country, which continues to weather the storm. So thank you all very much. My thanks to Bob and his team, and thank you to Melissa and Paula from my team for making this possible. Have a great weekend. We hope to see you soon. Thanks.
Take care.